on average, men rate women pretty evenly,
Yeah.
even when we don't know them. Women, on the other hand, rate men terribly when they don't know you and perfectly fine when they do. The way that I see it happen in the real world too, you go out to a bar or a club or whatever, and you just see women clustering around.
And you see the
just a
familiar
few
and
men.
unfamiliar. I think that's really important because I think that's where we get a lot of pushback here is people don't understand those are two different things.
Exactly. So if women do not know you, if women are introduced to a room full of 100,000 men, like a stadium full of 100,000 men that they do not know, they're going to rate them in attractiveness like this. A lot of guys are just going to be totally invisible. I have several stories that I tell about women don't even see as men. There was a couple of girls who I was telling them about this a few years ago as I was formulating these ideas, and they said, "Oh no, that's not true. We don't rate men unfairly." I pointed to a guy across the street and I said, "What about him? What number would you give him?" And they said, "What guy?" And I said, "There's one guy right there." And they were
Yes.
like, "Is he behind the mailman?" I said, "No, the mailman. He's a guy." And they went, "Oh, I thought you meant like a guy. I think you meant like a guy." They didn't see him as being in the dating pool at all because he was low status.
There was some study you mentioned before about where women, when they saw unattractive men, there was like no neurochemical reaction. Do you remember?
I looked for that. I did not find that study.
Okay.
It may be made up.
Okay.
But regardless, I have seen most of my stories are when I was an Uber driver.
Yes.
Girls would talk like I
Wasn't there.
not there. They would just, yeah.
I'll take it one step further. Not only do I agree with this totally from thousands of interactions anecdotally that these men at the lowest, and this is the cashier at Walmart who checks you out, you ask the girl, like, what did he look like? And they never remember. Not only is that true, I also believe that men climbing that scale isn't something they consciously believe even exists.
Yeah.
I mean the more attractive women. Like what I mean is Rich Cooper, he has a saying, he goes, women don't care about your struggles. They wait at the finish line and they the winners. Kind of the situation where, because my girlfriend will come over and I'll listen to them talking about like who they're attracted to and the guy is just hot or they have a connection. And then you're like, well, what about all the things he put into like making himself hot or whatever? And the concept of them baking things in and working on themselves to become more attractive doesn't comprehend, like male improvement doesn't like really comprehend to them. And when you think about it, it makes sense because if I were to tell you that there's a very unattractive woman and I was going to say, what can I tell her to say to you to make you want to have sex with her? Your answer would be obviously there's nothing she can say. That's ridiculous. Right. And so women feel the same way. That's why when women give advice about dating, they're giving advice about men they're attracted to. They're saying buy her flowers. Buy her flowers is something a man she's attracted to would do, but not average men, because the concept of you not being attracted to a man and then being attracted to him is outside of their reality, because attraction just happens and it's magical and it's made of destiny, fairy dust, and karma. That's how attraction happens for them. It just happens. But for us, people who study evolutionary psychology, intersexual dynamics, or a guy who had bad game and then good game, we know that attraction is a formula that happens because of some of the best way I say those things that you had on the bottom of your scale there. Attraction is a formula. We must do the things in the formula, and then we come out baked at the end, and we finally got biceps and girls pay attention to us.
The way that the elements of the chart work are that basically this is the most important one for men to know, because women don't really need to, most of them don't need to change much about what they're doing. They just are who they are and men will like them or not, most of them. But if you are a man, you need to understand that if you don't know women and you are not super physically attractive or very high status, they're not going to recognize you as an option at all. If you get to know women by going to school with them and becoming familiar and being, the class clown, or seeing her in church over and over again, once they know you, they start getting warm and fuzzy feelings. And they go, oh, well, I didn't notice him before, but now that I know him, they begin to rate men more fairly, which is the same way that this would be the women rating men. This is the way that men rate women, is the same way. When we see women just walking around unfamiliar, we rate them like most of them are 5s. There's a lot of 4s and 6s. There's very few 10s and 1s, but women put almost all men below 5. Like I believe it's 80% below 5. When you get to know people, then women begin to rate men more fairly, which is why if you're not in the top 10%, that's your best strategy, is to go to places where you see the same women over and over again, which is just repeatedly.
Once again, get from an unfamiliar scenario to a familiar scenario. That's the advice, right? That's why I teach Social Circle, exactly for this reason you're talking about right here.
Yeah, exactly. See the same women over and over again, or figure out a way to make women really comfortable with you right away, like with jokes or humor or something. That's, the strategy. If you can't make it in the top 10%, is get familiar with someone. I also have, I split the way that men see women up into some men rate women low. If usually they either are doing very, very well in life or want to pretend they are.
Yes.
That's why I put fragile ego. So you'll see these guys that are just, they've got nothing going for them. And they'll look at a picture of a model and go, like, she has pointy elbows. She's a 2.
Yeah.
And, no one believes you that you can do better than that. And then you've got the anime fans who any woman with a pulse, they're like, oh, she's amazing and beautiful. Men do both of those things. Some men underrate women and some men overrate women. But on average, men rate women pretty evenly,
Yeah.
even when we don't know them. Women, on the other hand, rate men terribly when they don't know you and perfectly fine when they do.
I was just going to say, like, I think men require less context in order to have sex. So the physical attractiveness is something that they could rate women on and then quickly know whether or not they're attractive. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. We see the physical attractiveness and we go, you're in, right?
Yes.
And then when we get to know you, if you're terrible, then you might fall out. But usually women are not
Do you know,
terrible.
I'm going to say this real quick. That is a point of growth. I think when I was 22, it didn't matter what a bad person she was. If she was fine. You were just like, there's a point in men's life, good or bad, where they go through this, a lot of times it's college, where it's like, have sex with more attractive women and do whatever I need to do to get to where I'm having sex with more attractive women. And I do not care about if she's a Republican, cleans her house, has a job as a butcher. These things don't matter to me. Later on, I think it's a situation of development and maturity. I remember one girl specifically telling me her last 3 boyfriends were exes. One girl repeatedly telling me that she actually liked when her boyfriend hit her, stuff like that. I was like, these things turned me off. And that's when I was like, I'm growing, because even though she's physically attractive, things that are outside of her physical attractiveness are now affecting my rating towards her. But I think you have to have some experience with women before you get to that point.
Yeah, you have to develop yourself to some point. So you don't just see women as things that are just, it doesn't matter what's inside her mind. She looks good or doesn't look good. It's a developmental issue, I believe. I was lucky enough to be able to do that pretty early in life. Like before I was done with college, I had some pretty rewarding relationships with some, really mid, maybe below mid women. It was just like, well, she's really cool. So glad to have learned that early. But yeah, it's a developmental issue. The rest of the chart, just to finish it off, these are sort of kind of a joke. Like these are to be taken seriously. And this is, everything I do has some humor in it, or most of the things I do has some humor in it. The humor is here. The women rating themselves, I know that there are some women that are good looking that think that they're, they have low self-esteem. I meet them. But the joke I'm making is that no one wants to think that they're less than average. And when you ask women, what would you rate yourself? They're always saying 7, 8, 9, 10. It just seems so common. And it's a general principle, I think, that women, especially in the information age, have their egos so inflated that if you ask them, well, where are you? They're going to say, I'm way high up because I get all this attention. And where are men? They're way high down. If you superimpose these things on each other, you see how ugly the situation is. All the women think they're here, or most of them think they're here. And then all the women think the men are here. So they're all like, this huge bubble of women is competing for this tiny sliver of men all the time. And so that's the explanation for why things are so bad. And of course, there's some exceptions, but I left them off. Women rating themselves would be here. Women rating other women privately would be me, and I don't know if you can see this, my besties. They always love themselves and their friends, and they go, we are awesome and we're great, just like this. It's a group, greatness, and then everyone else is down here, all that. And then women rating women in public, everybody is 10. Just put everyone at 10.
Yes. You were talking about before about the distribution of wealth. Men pay disproportionately higher taxes and women are more disproportionately the beneficiary of those taxes. By the way, my complaint is not women making more money. That's great. That's fine. My issue is then when you make more money and you are the majority of people who graduate from college, the cohort of men that you would want to marry, they cannot compete. And because in society, well, again, Dr. David Buss's 37 culture study, women are 100% more interested in a man's ability to procure resources than men are interested in a woman's ability to procure resources. And so because of that, that's the reason why when women make more money, they want men who make even more money than them. That's the reason why Rihanna would date a billionaire even though she had all that money. And then the contrapositive of that, the other part of that, I thought was interesting. I've never heard you talk about this except for the younger thing, is when men made more money in all of these societies, the difference in age between them and their wife increases. So men would date the youngest women. The youngest women would go to the wealthiest men. It's an interesting concept.
Of course, it's the values express themselves more clearly in certain situations. The relationship of money to mating success is really pretty straightforward, and when you tell people about it, they just don't want to hear it.
Yeah, because it paints an unflattering picture of men and women. men buying
does.
their affection and women selling it. That is a commoditization of it. And for some people, you want genuine desire. It's funny. I've had Dan Bilzerian's a friend of mine, and he's come on here and he said, I wish I could pay prostitutes, but I can't because I need women to be into me. Dude, I could just pay prostitutes and not do any of this. I did all of this because I want women to go nuts over me. And so he talks about fame and jealousy creating this. And he lives real near here. I hang out at his place sometimes. And these women, like watching them compete for him is one of the craziest things, because mate choice copying is a theory to most people. So is Sexy Sun's hypothesis. Watching the most beautiful women you've ever seen fight for this dude is the craziest. Someday, Hometh, I hope to be able to take you over there so you can see it. It is crazy.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I accept.
Yes.
I preemptively accept.
Beautiful.